Imagine life's challenges as a storm, a force that can either wash us away or spark the change we need. Here, we're the spark that ignites that storm, the fire that fuels it, and the guiding light through it. So, lean in, open your mind, and we'll realize that we are not at the mercy of the storm, but we are the storm.
I used to think something was wrong with me. The stress, the anxiety, the trauma, it felt like a flaw. Until I learned the truth. I wasn't broken. I was disconnected from my body, my breath, my power. The second I reconnected, everything changed. That's what they do at Reconnect Mind Body. Not fix you, because you don't need fixing. They help you remember who you are. You are the storm. Start reconnecting today at thereconnectlife.com. Welcome to We Are the Storm. We are excited to have you here. Our last episode, we just finished up with gratitude. And if you haven't gotten a chance to listen to that, be sure to go back because it was an amazing conversation about the role that gratitude plays in the storms that we face and how we view them. Today, we are going to dive into framework. And I cannot wait to talk about it. And so we are going to start. I'm Ashley, by the way, and this is my co-host, Jackie, and we're going to dive right in.
Yes, we are. We definitely are. This is after our last conversation when we talked about gratitude. One of the main things that I'm really grateful for is actually having a framework that works.
Yeah.
That is consistent and it's useful in really difficult moments. I think that is probably one of the hardest things that I've seen with clients and that I've experienced myself is that there's a lot of really great bodies of work out there that we, push and pull from and we kind of cobble things together, but they're all very incomplete.
Yeah.
One of my very favorites is positive psychology, right? And we talked a lot about the important tools of positive psychology and how we really do have the power to reframe things, but by itself, it doesn't create durable resilience. We talk a lot about emotional intelligence. We talk about, talk about a huge body of work. And I myself, I'm a trained practitioner. I utilize the tools. I've been using the tools for a long time. I train people. And, but again, by itself, it's incomplete.
Yeah.
And so that's why I'm really, really grateful that there is a framework that we have, I don't want to say landed on, but we've pulled this together through a lot of trial and error and figuring out what really does work.
Yeah.
And I'm also grateful for the simplicity of it.
Yeah, that's definitely something that I was going to bring up. You had mentioned before that it's simple. It's not easy because it never is, but it's simple, which allows you to really go through the process, right? Because if the resilience aspect of it, if going through the challenge, the storm was easy, right? Or even if it's hard and this other part is hard and now you have two hard things together, it makes it even more difficult to get to the point where you're utilizing it and going through the process and going through the framework and making sure that it shows your potential.
Yeah.
So having it be the simple part that you said allows it to fit in really well and be useful in that time.
Absolutely. So the most important pieces of the framework, right? There's 3 incorporated approaches that are absolutely necessary. If you remove one of them, it's like the 3-legged stool. You take one of the legs away, you fall over. The somatic approach. You have to incorporate your body. You have to reconnect your mind to your body and to be able to create the stillness and understand and feel, notice everything that's happening within our physical selves.
Yeah.
The second thing is intellectual. You have to be able to intellectually recognize mindset and be able to reappraise and ask different types of questions of ourselves.
Yeah.
And then finally is the emotional piece. You have to have the emotional approach. We're emotional beings, like we talked about in our very first podcast together, that when you're an emotional processor, sometimes information comes in through the emotion centers of your brain first.
Yeah.
And there's no rewiring that, right? It is how you came into this world.
Yeah.
But there is a better understanding about what you can then do with it.
Absolutely.
And what emotions are. So that's really the 3 critical approaches that we've integrated into this model. And so the Wild Fig resilience model has 5 steps. And it looks like a triangle. And we start at the first step, which is pause. Okay. When we say pause, we're talking about reconnecting the body and the mind. And what that looks like, if you have a meditative practice, if you've got things that, really work for you, fantastic. And I really highly encourage that you keep doing those. Most people don't.
Yeah.
Most people operate between here and here every day.
Yeah.
And they have gotten very good at ignoring what's going on with their physical bodies. So again, mindfulness, we call it mini mindfulness.
Yeah.
Studies have shown through fMRI studies that we don't need 30 minutes of meditation to calm our brain and to be able to, reconnect like it's necessary. It actually only takes about 90 seconds to 3 minutes.
Wow.
That's it.
That's it.
But what we are asking is for people to start noticing and doing things in a different way where they can start noticing their bodies. They can start noticing how things are feeling. They can start noticing their breath. They cold plunge, right? We talk about, I mean, this is going to be like air quotes deal, right?
Yeah.
Pre-plunge, post-plunge. But it's all about reconnecting. And so the critical piece for pause is setting up intervals throughout your day for being consistent in practicing the mini mindfulness. So there's apps that you can use. There's breathing exercises that you can use. When people have had no exposure to mindfulness practices at all, my recommendation is attach your mindfulness practice to your routine.
Yep.
Brushing your teeth.
Yep.
Right? Everybody brushes their teeth, hopefully twice a day. So this time, instead of if you're right-handed, use your left hand. Use the opposite hand. It's weird. It's awkward. But guess what? You're paying attention.
Yeah.
You're paying attention to your body and just notice how it feels. If you're in the shower, feel the hot water on the back of your head. Feel the cold underneath the tile underneath your feet. Smell. Focus on the different smells in the shower. What you're doing is you're paying attention to the different parts of your brain lighting up. It's actually, the old side of right hemisphere, left hemisphere. The reality is our brains operate much like an orchestra.
Yeah.
Different parts light up at different times. But that sensory data really does light up the creative centers in our brain, which happen to be right, on the right side, metaphorically. So again, notice. Get in the pattern of noticing through consistent practice. Once you do that, then you can move into the next step. Well, the product of pause, reconnection, is stillness. You're able to quiet your nervous system down. So that allows you to deploy the second step of the framework, which is catch. Catch means catch the mindset. And we kind of talk about developing a critical early warning system. And it is, are you being critical of yourself, other people, or of a situation that you might find yourself in or people might be in? If the answer is yes to any one of those three questions, you are in a negative mindset.
Yeah.
Which means you are in danger. You're in a danger zone.
In the danger zone.
You're in the danger zone. So then what do you do about it? Hearing and recognizing that negative mindset can move you then into the third step, which is shift. So you've paused, you've reconnected, you've created the stillness necessary. You're able then to catch what's really going on, and you can hear the negativity.
Yeah.
You can hear the self-sabotage. You can hear the tapes that we've got playing, right? We talked about people typing things in on a keyboard when we're young. What are the programs that are running?
Yeah.
We catch those things. And then once we've become aware of those types of things that are playing for us, we go into the third step, which is shift. That's where it's our opportunity to shift our perspective. Find the gift or the opportunity in whatever it is that you're facing, right? Do a gratitude exercise, right? But there's two important steps to shift, and you can't reverse the order. They have to happen sequentially. The first step is empathy. You must deploy empathy. And we had talked about that. Like, what does that look like and sound like? Deploying empathy really forces us to get into someone else's shoes and to come from a place of love and understanding and ask ourselves questions like we said before, what part about what I'm experiencing or what I'm seeing is just part of the human experience?
Yeah.
If my very best friend were going through this,
Yep.
what would I tell them?
Yeah.
Right? 9 times, I would say really closer to 10 times out of 10, it would be an empathetic response. It would be a big picture. Hey, listen, remember who you are.
Yeah.
Remember how valuable you are. Those types of loving statements, those are always part of empathy. Okay. So once you've deployed empathy, then the second step in shift is ask higher questions. Higher questions means you're taking your vision above your gaze from the current situation and you're lifting it up and over. Given what I now know, what's possible? With the strengths and the assets that I have and my experience and how I'm looking at this picture now, what am I taking with me forward?
Yeah.
Right? Empowering questions. Okay? So that is shift. What you're doing is you're taking the negative lens off of how you're viewing this situation
Yep.
and you're replacing it.
Yeah.
It's very powerful.
Yeah.
But again, like we talked about simplicity versus ease, they're not the
easy.
same thing.
Yeah.
It's not easy. So these things take practice. It takes practice deploying empathy. If this isn't something that you have a very strong muscle
Yep.
native to you, I happen to have a very strong empathetic muscle, which I have to be careful because that can become my very greatest weakness if I overuse it.
Yeah.
Some people have a very difficult time, getting into that empathetic space with themselves or other people. So again, it's about practice and being consistent. Once you can ask yourself higher questions, you can give yourself very empowering responses to those.
Yeah.
Those responses become the storm. Those are the storm responses. What's possible? What am I bringing with me? What can I influence? Now we're talking about powerful, powerful statements. And then that allows you to then move into the fourth step, which is feel. So we've been pause, catch, shift, feel. Feel is where we really get good at understanding our emotional centers and what's happening in the brain. And you and I have had a lot of conversations about emotions and what.
Yeah.
So I'd say for about the first 10 years of my career, it was very much on the model of emotions where it was focused on you're feeling a certain way, get really, really good at identifying what you're feeling, and then regulate your behavior if it's not useful. So you can make a positive impact on the situation, especially important for leadership, right?
Yeah.
Parenting, right? I mean, like this is really impactful stuff. What we've learned now through fMRI imaging and a fantastic lady. Her name is Lisa Feldman Barrett. She's a neuroscientist. I believe she's out of Stanford. She's got several books out, but I think the most impactful one is called How Emotions Are Made. Her understanding of emotions and the latest science and research that actually backs up her findings has shown that our brains exist in a silent black box.
Yep.
Okay? So what does that mean? It means that our brains are wired to keep us alive. Our brains are wired for survival. Our brains do that by monitoring our sensory data and regulating our breathing, regulating our heart rate, regulating our body temperature, all of these things. That's what our brains do. It keeps us alive.
Yeah.
When we encounter stress, when we encounter certain types of situations which cause us anxiety, which make us fearful, that fear one is really powerful. Angry, same thing.
Yeah.
It's a combination of sensory data that it's created in our bodies. It's recognized in our brain, and it's like our brain slaps a label on it and says, that's fear. This combination of sensory data, that's fear. Okay? So that's great. But what does that mean as we're moving through life and as we're moving through different types of situations where we all of a sudden feel fear?
Yeah.
What is that feeling? The reality is our emotions are a set of predictions.
Yeah.
Our brains make predictions. It's how we've stayed alive. as a species, right? We exist because our predictions, because the one time where the rustling in the bush is actually a tiger
Right.
or a threat,
Right.
will run. So we are very, very good at making predictions and creating patterns. The problem is we don't live in a society, in an environment where a rustling bush means danger anymore. But those are still the responses that our brain offers to us.
Yeah.
Okay. So if our emotions are predictions, what does that mean for what I'm facing right now? And is it accurate? No, not really.
Yeah.
It's something that is from my past that I am bringing forward, that my brain has recognized sensory data and says, you're fearful. This is what you feel. That's where that I feel something, therefore I am. Well, now we know this isn't true.
Yeah.
I'm feeling something, but it's not necessarily reflective of what I'm facing right now.
Yeah.
Okay, my gosh, well, what does that change?
Everything.
Everything, right?
Yeah.
The circumstances that I'm facing in my emotional response to that set of circumstances becomes much less powerful because I now know that my emotion is a prediction that my brain is making. So then I'm able to engage the logical side of my brain to say, hey, I acknowledge the emotion.
Yep.
I'm able to name it. I need to get very good at developing a very robust vocabulary about our emotions. We need to get past the 7 core emotions, right?
Yeah.
We need to be able to distinguish between anger and feeling disrespected. They're very different. But once you recognize, okay, this is a prediction, what of my current circumstance is accurately, do an evidence search. For what of what I'm facing right now supports what I'm feeling. What I think most people find is that because it's a prediction, usually they'll find little pieces of evidence, but not overwhelming evidence, which justifies the emotion. So that's when the regulation comes in.
Interesting.
Right? If there's that, okay, well, I do feel like I feel a little bit disrespected because he said this to me, or my boss was, like you said about your design, he's like, it's still not good, right?
Yeah.
It's still, after all this time and attention and all this detail work and everything. There's an anger response, right? But now you're questioning and you're doing an evidence search about what really was happening in the moment. And so when you're able to do that and you're able to regulate your emotion based on the lens of what's actually happening right now, not based on what am I bringing forward from my past, now you're in control.
Yeah.
And now you're able to regulate your emotion much, much better because your emotional, the power the emotion has over you becomes very, very, very weakened. And then when you're in that state and you feel like you're in a positive place to accurately identify the emotion, then you can move on to the 5th step. So again, pause, catch, shift, feel. Final step is act. The entire point of developing resilience is to be able to create movement. That's what characterizes resilience, its potential and movement. And so we, talk about motivation. What are the things that really motivate you about keeping moving, about moving in a certain direction? And then set a goal for yourself. The SMART framework works. It works. Everybody knows it.
Yeah.
The one thing I really recommend is as far as the T, instead of time bound, I like trackable. Sometimes if things take longer than we think they should take and we're not able to stick to our timetable that we've set, we can start that negative mindset. Again, we can start getting down on ourselves. The self-defeating patterns can cycle through, right? So again, it's about movement and it's about sometimes you won't be able to complete the process in a perfect way. You'll get up to feel and then you'll start noticing some old tapes. Well, guess what? You start back again at mindfulness. Go back to pause and work your way back up until you're able to complete all 5 steps. I myself have gotten through 1, 2, 3, gone back to 1. 1, 2, 3, come back to 1 because it's a strong muscle. But the key to the framework is consistency.
Yeah.
It's not perfection. Never chase perfection. Ever, ever, ever. It's deadly.
Yeah.
It's about consistency. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It's so amazing. And there's so many just good things and gems in everything you're saying. And every time you speak to it, every time I hear it, I pull out more. I align it more with different things. I look at it from different frameworks. And it's just so incredible to keep having this conversation. And are you familiar with the Enneagram?
Yeah.
I'm a 4. Mm-hmm. And part of the 4 framework is there's acting, feeling, and thinking. Mm-hmm. I get stuck in the thinking, feeling loop. Acting is extremely difficult for me.
Yep.
I will feel something. I'll think about what I'm feeling, and then I'll think about how I feel about what I'm thinking. And I'll just get in this loop where self-discovery is great. And also, I'm not acting on it. Mm-hmm. And the motivation to act is often the hardest part for me. There was a really good video I saw the other day, and I apologize, I don't know who attribute it to, but it talked about the motivation being the thing that it is, right? You don't get the motivation to do the thing. You do the thing, and that is the motivation to do the thing. Mm-hmm. And I do find that when I'm preparing for like this podcast or getting ready for a big work project, I don't want to do it. But once I just do it, right? Nike, just do it. Mm-hmm. Once I just do it, there's this momentum that happens that becomes motivation for all of those other things. Yeah. And then I don't get stuck in that feeling, thinking loop that I often do get stuck in just myself, because that's where I tend to live.
Yeah. Well, it becomes a comfort zone.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, it feels, there's a level of comfort about existing in that loop, mm-hmm. because the risk is leaving and acting.
Yes.
That's where the risk lies.
Yeah.
And so being able to commit to yourself that I will allow myself to stay in this space for this long, mm-hmm. because it's valuable.
Yeah.
It's very valuable. But after this, I'm committed to act. And it doesn't have to be anything big. Build the muscle and mm-hmm. act small.
Yeah.
And I tell people all the time, we're not moving mountains. Just identify the next 3 things that could move you in the right direction.
Yeah.
And if that's, texting someone to confirm an appointment, if that is whatever it is, mm-hmm. tying my shoes so I don't trip and fall, do something.
Yeah.
But get in the habit of acting. And mm-hmm. I think that is what, you're not alone, because there's a lot of people that find themselves, especially when they're trying to learn things about themselves, they're revealing themselves mm-hmm. to themselves. Mm-hmm. There's a hesitance to act.
Yeah.
Because then it's an outward manifestation of what's been happening in this process. Mm. So now everybody kind of knows.
Yeah.
Like you're moving towards something. But it's powerful. And again, when you get into that negative mindset, you have to go back and start over. Mm-hmm. You have to go back and pause and reconnect your body and your mind and settle yourself. And then you need to identify where it's a hang up. Mm-hmm. And then you have to shift your thinking. Yeah. And it's just that loop that keeps happening until you finally get to the space where you say, I'm committed then to do the next 3 things. Mm-hmm. It's very powerful.
There's a couple of, with that a couple of tools that I use for myself, knowing my own tendencies with ADHD, for example. Tasks mm-hmm. are so overwhelming because there's so many decisions within the decisions that is a weight, a physical weight. And I get bogged down on doing the simplest things because there's just so many things that have to go into this, right? And my brain breaks them all down. And so there's a couple of hacks that I really love personally, and one of them is the 3 things. They just start. Mm-hmm. Like
start.
I'm just going to do one dish.
That's right.
That's just one dish. I'm going to do that cup because I want to drink out of that cup. And then, I'm already doing this dish. I might as well do the next dish. Yeah. And then before you know it, all of the dishes are done, assuming I don't get distracted by my child or a snack or something like that.
Yeah.
But that framework and also for work, I find the framework I like to use is, what can I do? Mm-hmm. In this moment, I'm overwhelmed. I'm in the weeds. I feel this overwhelming feeling that I can't accomplish. And all of those tapes that, maybe I'm not good enough or I'm not imposter syndrome or what, all of those things play. And I'll ask myself, what can I do right now? Mm-hmm. And even if that's just reply to one email or update one database or write one letter or one thing, what one thing can I do right now? And that shifts my focus and kind of gives me that one foot in to keep going after that. And I found that really powerful as well.
It's really powerful. Another really powerful tool is to journal. It's because as you're growing, as you're revealing yourself, as you're learning new things about what's working and what's not, where you're getting hung. And remember, you'll get hung up in different areas.
Yeah.
Okay, that's fine. But having something where you're recording not only your commitment to yourself, but you're recording the journey through the process. Yeah. It does become a lot more native to you. And where I describe it to clients, it's an uphill climb and then it gets easier and then you're uphill climbing again. And that's where the work is. The muscles develop and pretty soon you're doing this. Mm-hmm. And you're deploying resilient behavior and thought patterns without having to purposefully engage and go through the steps. And I'm hung up on 3. I got to go back to 1. Mm-hmm. You'll recognize that your body will automatically start doing breath work before a meeting.
Yeah.
That you will, you get frustrated. You do box breathing when you're, trying to talk to your teenage son or something that's really frustrating, right?
Yeah.
It will become native to us.
Yeah.
Because it's successful. Again, we are wired to create patterns. Mm-hmm. Successful patterns stick.
Yeah.
And so those patterns that are wired for our survival, they've been very successful because, here we are, right? We just have to wire different patterns and their response patterns for our behavior to certain stimuli, right?
Yeah.
It's a really, really impactful, it's an impactful work and probably the most important work that people can do.
Yeah. That ties in so great with, as I was talking about before, the kind of before and after part of it. Our brains are prediction machines, right? And we have a tendency, we make associations for everything. Everything is associated with connotations or words or past experiences or all those types of things. And for me, going through the cold plunge, which is that resilience, right? That framework, the beforehand, the breathing, I have paired with this preparation to go through the storm, to sit in that cold water. And I can feel my body just accepting it. I'm going to do this. That is so powerful that when I use that same, we talked about the heat breath. I use that same breath when I'm stressed out and I'm in the car and that exact thing. And I feel my body again preparing for that resilience framework. And then the after part, that feeling of, okay, now what? The potential, the viewpoint, the seeing the good, the light, all these things is so attached to, you said you listen to music a lot. Music is for me as well, is everything.
Yep.
They play very specific music at Reconnect. So much so that 90% of that music is actually on a playlist that when I'm feeling stressed out or anxious or having a rough day or anything, I will play that playlist. And it brings me back to that feeling because I've so closely associated the music with that feeling that I can feel it coming up in my body. And I'm like, okay, I'm refocusing, I'm shifting, I'm looking at this, and I find that I am in a better place because of those associations and that pairing, the preparing my body for it, or pairing it with the after effects, the rewards to keep me going.
It's
right?
the patterns.
Yeah.
You're strengthening the patterns every time you go, and the patterns, all the different pillars of the experience become cemented together. And that's the pattern. Yeah. So it's a perfect example of the patterns that we're rewiring, actively rewiring. The other important piece to framework that I don't want to leave out is that the framework is important to set in place before you need it.
Yeah.
Right? When we're in highly charged environments, when we feel like we're out of control, being acted on in the storm, that is not the time to try to learn a new framework.
Yeah.
This is something that we want to develop consistently over time. And I think that's what I love about our time together here in this space, in this project, is that I think we'll see threads of the framework come to life through everybody that sits here.
Yeah.
And tells their different, very wide variety of stories and experiences, but we'll be able to pull through because, again, this is a human experiment. Like, this is a human experience, Resilience is a human issue.
Yeah.
And I just love that we're going to hear so many different echoes of the same pillars over and over and over again. It's going to be really powerful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think in line with that is the thing about Reconnect is that it is doing that for you. You have a place to not only build the framework, but practice the framework.
Yes.
See it happen, cement it in so that when you're faced with resilience out there, it's already kind of automatic.
It's a muscle.
Yeah.
It's a muscle. And you choose the pace, you choose the environment, you choose the people that keep you grounded. It is a perfect place to practice.
Yes.
Us and our cold plunges.
I know.
It's awesome.
It's a fundamental part of, at least definitely my story, fundamental part of my story, but I think it's of yours as well, and definitely of ours together.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I can't wait to get the Reconnect folks on here.
I know. I'm so excited.
It's awesome.
Well, thank you all so much for joining us. We are so glad that you could be here with us today, and we are grateful for you and that you can join in this space and really talk about storms and resilience and how we can help each other and become a tribe. And that's kind of definitely our goal here, is to do that. So we look forward to seeing you all the next time. Thank you. Thank you for joining. We hope today's episode has ignited a pivotal spark in you and uncovered a fresh perspective that reminds you hold the power to transform every storm into your strength. Share this journey with your tribe and re-listen to uncover hidden gems. Until next time, keep building your resilience, and when you face the storm, don't just weather it, become it.